This painting inspired the peace sign, that we use, and Picasso's Guernica. The painting's large, 106 by 137 inches. It's on display in the Prado Museum of Madrid. The painting is on the short list of highlights in the museum, one of the premier art collections in the world. In the painting, Goya depicts the city of Madrid in the background in the pre-dawn light, and in the foreground, on the right, there is a rigidly poised lineup of French soldiers portrayed from behind. We don't see their faces. Their guns are aimed at a lineup of what looks to be townspeople. It's a firing squad, a military firing squad. There are a few dead bodies on the ground in the foreground, and slightly off to the left, drawing the eye, is one figure standing with arms wide open, a laborer, clad in white and yellow, the colors of the Pope, illuminated by a lantern. The figure is intended to have clear religious overtones, including the wound painted on the palm of one hand. He is one in a long line of peasants lined up to be killed. The scene depicts an historical occurrence. In 1807, Napoleon of France conspired with the King of Spain to take over Portugal. It was actually a ruse. Napoleon really wanted Spain. He took over Spain and installed his brother as the king. In May of 1808, hundreds of Spanish civilians rebelled against the French incursion. And on May 3rd, the rebels were rounded up and shot by French soldiers. Goya painted the 3rd of May, 1808, in 1814, after the final expulsion of the French and the return of King Ferdinand VII to the throne of Spain. There's another painting of a firing squad in the Prado Museum. I don't have a picture of this one in a book, but I do have it on my phone. It's called, and you might want to look it up on your phone, but I'll pass my phone around, Execution of Torrijos and His Companions at the Beach at Malaga. So maybe you can take this around and make sure that the picture stays up, because it'll go away in a minute. Just a minute, I'm going to tell you about that. Okay, so this was painted quite a few years later in 1888. It's also in the Prado. The Execution of Torrijos and His Companions on the Beach at Malaga by Antonio Gibert Perez. In this painting, there's a group of 16 men lined up on the beach. They seem to be diverse. Some are well-dressed, others peasants, some blindfolded. They're attended by 3 priests or monks. 4 bodies are lying shot dead in the sand in the foreground of the painting, so a little warning to you if you don't care to see that. This time, it's not the French army, but the Spanish army that's lined up row upon row behind them. The sky's gray, ominous clouds and roiling seas provide the background. It's an emotional scene. Rage, pride, resignation, love, concern, dejection, all come across from the figures lined up, about to be killed by the firing squad. This painting also depicts an historical occurrence. Torrijos, the main figure in the execution lineup, was a leader in the movement against the absolutism of the Spanish monarch. He helped lead a rebellion and then was exiled to England. He returned to Spain to continue the conflict with the absolutist monarchists. He and 48 companions sailed to Spain and were captured and shot on the beach. No trial, no due process, just summarily executed by the military. The execution was ordered by none other than Spanish King Ferdinand VII, the king who was restored to the throne after the invasion of Napoleon. And the painting, the 3rd of May, portrays the sacrifice of the common people in their efforts to oust Napoleon and the French and restore their King Ferdinand VII. The Torrijos painting commemorates efforts to oust the Spanish authoritarian dictator King Ferdinand VII. Both paintings portray man's inhumanity to man, and I say man because there are no women in these paintings. As a species, we seem to do the same thing over and over and over again. We kill in the cause of liberty, only to gain the liberty to kill. Again, and again, and again, and again, and it continues today the world over. Now, there were several sermon requests this summer for sermons about how to deal with the stress and pressure of our current historical moment. These are, as we heard from Sweet Honey and the Rock before the service began, trying times. And the presidential debate Thursday made that clear in bold capital letters. But the paintings remind us that there have always been trying times. Always been attacks on freedom and liberty. Always been hostile takeovers and rebellions. There have always been threats to homeland, livelihood, and well-being. Jesus, too, lived in trying times. His country was under the thumb of the Romans, being squeezed financially through taxation, being forced into labor, deprived of full liberty. The people of Palestine were not flourishing in the 1st century CE, which of course is why the Messiah came at that time, because things were not good, and things are not good there now. And one of the things we see in the ministry of Jesus is a rebellion against all the forces that sap and diminish life. In the story we heard today of the healings, people expect Jesus to run to the side of the synagogue leader's daughter because the synagogue leader is a prominent person in the community. He's a higher up. Patriarchy dictates that he be served immediately. But Jesus engages the crowd, wends his way through the people, and has an encounter with another person who needs healing, the woman with the flow of blood. A nobody. Women were already considered of less value than men in the cultural system. They were at best second class, not worthy of attention or note, and this woman is bleeding, which makes her unclean, untouchable. And she has been bleeding for 12 years, which we're told is the age of the daughter of the synagogue official. So for that daughter's whole life, this woman has been bleeding. And for 12 years, she has been an outcast, shunned, marginalized, ignored, and isolated, as well as experiencing the pain and hygiene challenges associated with a constant flow of blood. She is worthless to the community, and she touches just the hem of Jesus' cloak and is healed. His healing power is for all, and he knows something has happened, and he exposes the healing. Maybe he wants people to know that this woman is no longer unclean. She has been restored. She's part of the community again. Maybe this shows us that the love of God extends to all, not just the rich, respectable, and highly regarded, but to the least and lost. Jesus doesn't play favorites. The gospel, the good news, is for all people, not just some people. Then Jesus and his friends get to the house of the leader of the synagogue, and they're told the child has died. And you took too long. The implication is that this diversion with the woman with the flow of blood prevented him from saving the official's daughter. But Jesus restores the daughter as well. There's no limitation, no restriction, no short supply of the healing power of divine love. The gospel's not a zero-sum game. Because someone receives something, it doesn't mean somebody else is deprived. Living in difficult times, confronted by the needs of the crowds, the officials, the religious leaders, those made poor, those forgotten and outcast, those considered different, less than, under an oppressive authoritarian governmental system trying to extract what it could from the people, here's Jesus offering healing, community, belonging, welcome to all. Embodying the unconditional, universal love of God. Jesus will not let the forces of society and the people around him construct or control his reality. So in the Gospel of John, despite the times, we're told of Jesus saying, I've said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and your joy may be complete. We're also told in the Gospels, not just that Jesus healed and fed and forgave everyone and restored them to community, but he had a reputation for, well, partying. In the Gospel of Matthew, we're told, look, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. The tax collectors were rich people known for taking advantage of others. Finally, the leaders, those in power, those benefiting from the subjugation of the people, those who want control, they cannot stand it that Jesus is having fun, that he's enjoying life, that he's taking delight in being alive, counting it all joy, as we're told in the letter of James. The power brokers cannot stand this threat. They cannot stand that Jesus is promising people joy and appreciation of the awe and delights of being alive. This is something that cannot be used to control people or oppress them or manipulate them. It's pure and boundless. Andrew Harvey, founder of the Institute of Sacred Activism, says, joy is the most important resource you could possibly have because joy is the mother of resilience, the mother of courage, the mother of fortitude, the mother of sacred energy, the mother of passion for life. Society wants us to feel deprived and deficient and defensive so that we can be controlled. But Jesus shows us there's more than enough for everyone, not just the higher-ups, but the people on the fringe too. He doesn't accept this construct of limitation. Not only does the gospel offer healing, food, and community, the gospel offers everyone joy. Jesus wants joy, full and free, for everyone. Joy from nature, joy from relationships, joy from awe at our next breath, from the beauty of the sunset and the stripes on a snake. He wants us to experience joy from the arts, music, dance, drama, from the strokes of paint on a canvas. Joy from the expression on the face of a child. A great kick in a soccer game. The produce from the garden. A great novel. Joy, really assaulting us every day if we will but see it, pay attention, notice. So what's an antidote to the stress around us, to our trying times, to the division in our land, to the violence of mass shootings and war? One response is to actively pursue and embrace joy. Make it a priority. Write it in a journal. How did you experience joy today? Every day. So while we were in Madrid last month, yes, we went to the Prado and other art museums. I was with our son Sterling, who's an artist, a painter. So he wanted to go to some galleries that feature contemporary artists. And we went down this side street near the museum, and there were several storefront galleries with large white rooms, high ceilings, art displayed on the walls, a reception desk with an attendant, and some printed information about the exhibits. In one gallery, Galleria MPA, I don't know what it stands for, there was an installation by an artist, Rogelio Lopez Cuerca. It featured a screen, a large TV, and on the screen was a photo of a lineup of 5 soldiers, guns at the ready, a tan wall topped with barbed wire, and palm trees towering over the wall behind them. And in the foreground, in front of the soldiers, were 2 lines of men seated on the ground, blindfolded, awaiting execution. We looked at the picture. I said to Sterling, this is like the paintings we saw in the Prado, that 3rd of May, and Torrijos. And as we stood there, looking at that image on the screen, it started to pixelate, to break up, and to transform. We watched this with interest. And what appeared on the image on the screen after all this pixelation? The image of the Goya painting, the 3rd of May. There were the soldiers lined up with the guns pointed at the townspeople. In the description of this work, we're told, the violence at the center of Goya's the 3rd of May, 1808, melds with the atrocities of current counter-terrorist action. Friends, the dynamics of violence, oppression, and domination continue, as they ever have, and still, or because of the insanity around us, the gospel of Jesus invites us to embrace the reality of joy. It's a radical revolution against the forces that engulf us. We close with words of poet Elizabeth Barrett Browning, who died on June 29th, 1861. Why? What is to live? Not to eat and drink and breathe, but to feel the life in you down all the fibers of being, passionately and joyfully. Amen.